I found out in a parking lot. My sister's parking lot. A brand new car, still smelling like plastic and polish, sat there like a trophy. She was laughing, keys swinging, telling someone it was a family gift. I didn't understand the words at first. Then she said the number, 120,000. My stomach dropped, because there was only one thing left worth that much. My grandma's antique diamond necklace, the one she'd worn for 50 years, the one she told me, clearly, slowly, was mine. I drove straight to hospice. Grandma Martha was propped up by pillows, skin thin, breathing shallow. Machines hummed softly around her. The room smelled like antiseptic and old flowers. I didn't ease into it. "They sold the necklace," I said. My voice cracked anyway. "They used the money to buy her a car." Grandma didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't ask me to repeat it. She just closed her eyes for a moment, like she was checking something off a list she'd already written. "I thought so," she said quietly. I stared at her. "You knew?" She reached for the phone on the table beside her bed. Her hand shook, but her grip was steady. "One call," she murmured, already dialing. "That's all this needs." When she hung up, she looked at me, calm, almost relieved. It's time they met my attorney. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. This wasn't a reaction. It was the next step. My name is Josephine. I'm 29. In my family, that put me in a very specific category: old enough to be responsible, young enough to be ignored. The one who understands, which is just a nicer way of saying doesn't push back. I was the quiet grandchild, the one who listened when Grandma Martha told stories that looped and repeated, the one who noticed which memories she guarded and which ones she gave away freely. Music, letters, old jewelry she touched before speaking, those things mattered to her. They weren't assets, they were anchors. The necklace was one of them. She told me about it years ago, not dramatically, almost casually. "When I'm gone," she said once, adjusting the clasp with careful fingers, "this goes to you." No witnesses, no paperwork waved around, just trust. I didn't announce it to anyone. I didn't think I needed to. In our family, sentimental things were supposed to be respected, or at least that's what I believed back then. I was wrong about a lot. By the time Martha went into hospice, my parents had taken over everything: bills, visits, decisions. They spoke for her even when she was still awake, still listening. My sister smiled through it all, floating in and out, never carrying the heavy parts. And me? I was expected to stay calm, to help, to not make things hard. So when I saw that car and understood what it cost, the shock wasn't just the betrayal, it was the certainty. They never thought I'd say anything. They were right about one thing. I wouldn't argue with them. I went straight to the only person who still mattered. They didn't hide it very well. That's the part that still gets me. My parents talked about the sale like it was already settled history, past tense, done, paperwork handled, money reallocated. They used words like practical and necessary, like that explained everything. "The necklace was just sitting there," my father said when I finally asked. "Martha doesn't need it anymore." My mother nodded. "And your sister needed reliable transportation. This way, everyone benefits." Everyone. Except the woman who'd worn it through marriages, funerals, births, and decades of ordinary days. Except the granddaughter she'd chosen, quietly, deliberately, to carry it forward. When I mentioned hospice, my mother waved it off. "She's not lucid half the time. She wouldn't even know." That sentence landed heavier than the rest. They didn't steal because they were desperate. They stole because they were confident. Confident Martha was too weak to object. Confident I was too passive to intervene. Confident sentiment had no teeth. They'd already spent the money by the time I spoke up. The car had plates, insurance, photos posted. My sister didn't even look guilty, just pleased, like she'd finally been picked. I didn't threaten, I didn't raise my voice. I asked one question. "Did you ask her?" Silence. My father cleared his throat. It wasn't necessary. That's when I understood what this really was. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a test. They were seeing how much they could take before anyone stopped them. They just didn't realize the person they'd underestimated was still watching and planning from a hospital bed. And she had already made sure this wouldn't end quietly. Grandma Martha's attorney arrived the next morning. No announcement, no drama, just a knock on the hospice door and a man in a dark suit who spoke softly, like this wasn't his first time standing beside someone in their final hours. My parents didn't come. They said they were busy. The attorney introduced himself to me, then to Martha, who opened her eyes and nodded once. That was all he needed. He spread the documents carefully across the small table. Trust papers, ownership records, dates highlighted in neat tabs. Everything precise, everything done years earlier when Martha was still sharp enough to know exactly who she could rely on. The necklace, he said, was never theirs to sell. I felt my breath catch. It remained your grandmother's property until her passing, and per her instructions, it was designated to you, Josephine. Martha's fingers curled slightly around mine. They thought, she said, voice thin but steady, that because it was sentimental, it wasn't protected. The attorney nodded. Sentiment doesn't weaken ownership, it clarifies intent. There it was, the thing my parents never bothered to check. They assumed love couldn't be enforced, that family rules replaced legal ones, that silence meant surrender. They were wrong. The sale had been flagged, the money traceable, the purchase reversible. Martha closed her eyes again, exhausted but calm. "Call them," she said quietly to the attorney. "It's time they understood what taking shortcuts actually costs." As he gathered the papers, I realized something unsettling. This wasn't damage control. This was correction, and it had been waiting patiently for them to make their move. My mother's birthday party was already loud when we arrived. 60 years, champagne, friends from church and work. My sister parked her new car right out front like it was part of the decor. People admired it openly. My parents basked in the attention. No one noticed us at first. Grandma Martha was wheeled in carefully, wrapped in a shawl, smaller than I'd ever seen her, but fully awake. Her attorney walked beside her, calm, carrying a slim folder like it weighed nothing at all. That's when the room shifted. The attorney didn't raise his voice. He didn't wait for silence either. He simply spoke, clearly, as if this were a routine clarification. "The house you're standing in," he said, "does not belong to you." Laughter sputtered and died. "It has always remained in Martha's name, as has the antique diamond necklace that was sold without authorization." My father's face drained of color. My sister's smile froze mid-breath. "The proceeds, $120,000, must be returned immediately, including the vehicle purchased with those funds." Someone dropped a glass. My mother tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to joke it away. The attorney wasn't done. "Failure to comply will result in legal action and restitution." The room didn't explode. It collapsed. People avoided eye contact. Conversations dissolved. The image my parents had spent decades polishing cracked in front of everyone who mattered to them. Grandma Martha didn't say a word. She just looked at me and squeezed my hand. And for the first time in my life, silence worked in our favor. Where are you watching from right now? And what time is it there? City, country, or just the time? Anything. I actually read these. All right, now let me tell you what happened after the party, when the doors closed and no one was watching anymore. The house emptied fast after that. Not dramatically, just quietly, the way people leave when they don't want to be seen choosing sides. Chairs scraped, coats were grabbed, the music kept playing a little too long before someone finally turned it off. My parents closed the door behind the last guest and stood there, stunned. My sister disappeared into the kitchen, pacing like movement alone might fix something. My father spoke first. This didn't need to happen like that. I nodded. You're right, it didn't. My mother turned on me. You embarrassed us. I met her eyes. You embarrassed yourselves. I just didn't cover it. That was when my sister finally snapped. It was just a necklace, she said. Grandma wasn't even using it. The room went very still. Grandma Martha shifted in her chair, tired but alert. I was still alive, she said softly. That usually matters. No one answered her. The attorney stepped in again, calm as ever. You have 72 hours to return the funds. After that, the process won't be gentle. My parents argued, not about what they'd done, about logistics, about timing, about inconvenience. They kept saying, we'll figure it out, like that erased the choice they'd already made. I watched them, strangely detached. This wasn't grief, it wasn't panic, it was exposure. They weren't upset about losing trust, they were upset about losing control. As we left, my mother called after me. You could have handled this privately. I stopped at the door. You could have asked her. I didn't wait for an answer, because some conversations only exist to confirm there's nothing left to discuss. They returned the money 2 days later, not with apologies, with tension, with receipts slid across the table like evidence they wished they didn't have to provide. The car went back to the dealership. My sister didn't look at me once. She stared at her phone, scrolling through a life that had suddenly gone very quiet. My parents asked for time. Time to stay in the house. Time to adjust. Time to figure out what came next. Grandma Martha listened without interrupting. When they finished, she nodded once. You can stay, she said, under a lease. Temporary. Clear terms. My mother opened her mouth to protest. Temporary, Martha repeated. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. They agreed. Later that night, Martha asked me to sit with her. The room was dim. The machines hummed steadily. She looked smaller than she had even that morning, but her eyes were clear. I didn't do this to punish them, she said. I did it to protect you. I swallowed. You didn't have to. She smiled faintly. I did, because silence teaches people they can keep taking. She squeezed my hand. Promise me something. Anything. Don't stay quiet after I'm gone. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. A week later, she passed peacefully in her sleep, and the house, the one my parents thought they owned, went quiet in a different way. Not empty. Ready. I moved into the house a month later, not ceremoniously, no boxes stacked for photos, just a suitcase, a few framed pictures, and the feeling that I was stepping into something that had been waiting for me longer than I realized. The house felt different without her, lighter in some rooms, heavier in others. I left most of it untouched at first, her chair by the window, the small table where she used to sort mail, slowly, deliberately. I wasn't ready to rearrange proof that she'd been here. My parents packed quietly. No scenes, no accusations. They treated the lease like a courtesy, not a boundary. I let that be their version of the story. I didn't correct it. My sister stopped coming around. I heard she told people she'd been caught in the middle. That phrase floats well. It doesn't land anywhere. A new piano arrived 2 weeks later. Not a replacement, a continuation. I ran my fingers over the keys before playing a single note. Some things don't need sound right away. Teaching felt different now, lighter. I stopped apologizing for taking up space in my own classroom. Students noticed. I didn't explain why. Sometimes I still think about the necklace, where it went, who wore it last. Then I remember what Martha really gave me. Not an object, a line I no longer cross for other people's comfort. The house stayed quiet that evening as the sun went down. Not lonely, settled. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was living on borrowed ground. I was exactly where I was meant to be.
People still ask about the necklace sometimes, where it ended up, if it was ever recovered, if I regret not fighting harder to get it back. I don't, because the truth is, Grandma Martha didn't leave me jewelry. She left me permission. Permission to stop shrinking. Permission to stop explaining. Permission to let consequences land where they belong. She knew exactly who my parents were. She knew how my sister moved through the world, and she knew me, not as the quiet one, not as the easy one, but as the one who would carry things carefully once she finally believed she was allowed to. After everything settled, my parents tried once more, a dinner invitation, carefully worded, neutral, like we were resetting a clock instead of acknowledging it had broken. I declined. Not dramatically, just clearly. Life moved on the way it always does when truth is no longer being avoided. Slower, calmer, real. I kept teaching. I kept the house warm. I built routines that didn't depend on anyone's approval. And every so often, when I unlock the door at night, I think of Martha making that call from her hospice bed, steady, resolved, done waiting. That was her final lesson. Inheritance isn't what you receive after someone is gone. It's what they teach you to stop tolerating while you're still here. And I carry that with me every day, quietly, fully, without asking permission ever again. I used to think being good meant being quiet, letting things slide, not making scenes, trusting that eventually people would notice what I carried. Grandma Martha knew better. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She didn't beg to be respected. She prepared. She documented. She waited. And when the moment came, she acted once, cleanly, and never looked back. That's what she gave me. Not revenge, not riches, a backbone. My parents still tell the story their way. My sister avoids the subject entirely. That's fine. Everyone needs a version they can live with. I don't correct them, because the truth doesn't need defending when it's already standing. I live in a house that's finally mine. I teach music to students who don't yet know how much their voices matter. I play when I want to. I rest when I need to, and I don't apologize for either. If there's a lesson here, it's not about heirlooms or money or lawyers. It's this: silence isn't kindness when it protects harm. Sentiment isn't weakness when it's paired with boundaries. And love doesn't require you to disappear to survive. Grandma Martha made one call in her final hours. I'm still living inside the echo of it, and I won't waste that gift. Not now, not ever. Subscribe if you want more stories like this, the quiet kind, where strength shows up without shouting, and the truth finally gets a voice.